All right, welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. My name is Sydney Williams. I am your host. This is virtual campfire number 41. Holy guacamole, that's amazing. We have a great show for you today. We are excited to welcome my friend, Stacy Jordan Shelton. She is a performance consultant and a coach, and she's helping people move from F this S. I used to say bad words, but now I don't because I'm trying to clean up the podcast. F this S to freedom. And Stacy radically changed my life back in 2016 when I first met her and started working with her. So I'm really excited for you to have your world transformed by all of her brilliance and greatness. And we are also excited to welcome Salomon to the Hiking My Feelings family. So that's coming up as well. And bonus guest that I'm so excited about, Jahmicah Dawes from Slim Pickins Outfitters, is also joining us today. They are the first Black-owned outdoor gear store in the country, and they have been running an incredible GoFundMe because they have been deeply impacted by COVID, and now the community is like rushing in to show mad love. So excited to have Jahmicah here as well. So a couple of quick updates here. Let's start with our Take a Hike Diabetes campaign. Every week, we like to show a little update to get you guys excited and keep you posted on what we're doing here. If you're new, we are on a mission to hike 1 million miles for diabetes awareness this year. Like 2 days ago, we hit 6,000 miles. So we're currently at 6,074. That might have gone up since I made this slide, but we're at 91 participants and we've raised $3,850. So thank you to everybody that is joining us. Thank you for tracking your miles, making big moves for the diabetes community. And speaking of big moves for the diabetes community, this is, as far as I know, the first outdoor organization to like really step up for a diabetes specific campaign, which is the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign. So I'm excited to welcome Salomon to the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign and the Hiking My Feelings family. So Becky, come on down. We're going to Price is Right it here for a little bit and talk a little bit about Salomon and the partnership. And we're dancing and I'm excited. It's so cool. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see your face. But we are ready to rock and roll. So hi, how are you?
Hi, Sid. I am good. Thanks so much for having us here and just really excited about the partnership and to chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I have been bugging Becky for the better part of probably like almost 2 years now. I started sending her ideas that I have for things we can do for the diabetes community and shoes that I was like, we could make custom shoes. And she's like, yes, in a little bit, like, give me a second. We're kind of busy. And I was like, okay, cool. Here's another idea I have. Here's another idea I have. And I'm sure you guys remember we made an announcement a few weeks ago that I was invited to join the Salomon squad, which equips me with top of the line equipment from Salomon, shoes, all the good stuff so I can keep my feet happy and healthy, which is a really important part of diabetes management. And then Becky was like, hey, Take a Hike Diabetes sounds cool. How can we support you? And I was like, one, cry face. It's awesome. Two, I'd love to get you involved. So we have some awesome stuff coming up. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit before we get into like the prizes that are super great and how you guys are doing this incredible donation matching with Hiking My Feelings. I would love to hear about like why you said yes. One, so I can feel good about it, but two, so other people can hear why big brands are getting involved with our campaign.
Yeah, gosh. Okay, where do I start? Well, first of all, I'll say I really love that custom shoe idea. We just need to figure out how to like meet minimum order quantities of 6,000 and sell that many pairs. So if anyone has great ideas to do that, maybe through Slim Pickins, I don't know. We should circle back. But the why is such an amazing question, and I could talk for a really long time about that, but essentially a few things. Salomon, most people know us from either skiing or trail running. We are so deep into those sports, and our awareness in those sports is just huge. So many people that have brand awareness of Salomon usually kind of stems from one of those, but actually our hiking category or outdoor category is our fastest growing. And what's so cool about that is that it's such an inclusive sport, right? Like hiking can mean so many things to so many people, from climbing a 14er to getting out for a little spin in your urban green space and everything in between. And so it's so cool to watch Salomon really hold on to and honor and cherish our point of difference of being such an athletic brand. But now really open the gates to so many different types of consumers. And that's a really big part of what we're doing as a brand. And it's something that sets us apart. We have so many decades of athlete feedback, ultimately, which have driven our product development, whether you're talking about skiing or trail running or hiking. A lot of other brands that are in a similar spaces of ours just don't have that like pinnacle athleticism. And we have what we call S-Lab, the Salomon Lab, that has driven and dictated our product development for a really long time, so that our products are truly technically the best that they can be. But now we get to really, like I said, open the narrative, open who our target consumers are, and try to pull in so many different types of people to the brand, because we just want more and more people to play outside, to be inspired by nature, to build earth stewardship, to find their own personal health and wellness. So I guess that kind of circles back on our why it was really important for us to support Sydney and you and the incredible work that you're doing. Because we believe in it. We believe that people can kind of find their best selves when they are outside and connecting and kind of making that their own. We have some really cool campaigns that we've launched in the last couple of years that really speak to authenticity and individuality. We had a WMN or women's campaign that we launched. It's in season 4 now. And the whole point was to really encourage women to play outside however the heck they wanted to kind of break down the barriers and the stereotypes that we, unfortunately kind of know to be true in our society, and just really encourage folks to just be themselves. Like we had one season that was revolved around the concept of beauty. And it was like, hey, if you want to curl your eyelashes in your tent and go hiking, like by all means do that. If you don't want to shower for 12 days and go backpacking, like that's great too. It just really was kind of like undefining what beauty in the outdoor means. So anyway, I think just missions align and visions aligned around what we're trying to do. And I think that's essentially our why. And just to give kudos to Sydney yourself. I mean, I just believe in you as a human and what you're doing, and you're so passionate and dialed, and we really wanted to support you in this mission as well. So,
woo! God, that feels good. And for anybody that's out there that's living with diabetes, especially type 2, where there's such a stigma around how you get it, it's your fault, you're lazy, like all the different horrible things that people say to people with type 2 diabetes. I live with type 2. I've heard the stigma. I've heard all the terrible things. And why this is so important to me is every year there are tens of thousands of non-traumatic amputations that are a result of diabetes. Like when you have diabetes and you leave it unmanaged, it increases your chance of diabetic neuropathy, which increases your chances of foot ulcers, which increases your chance of losing your feet to an amputation. And one of the easiest ways, and by easy, it's getting easier now, especially with the commitment to making towns and spaces more walkable and improving these green spaces, you can go and have that healing power of nature connection in the cities where you work, live, and play. And so for anybody that's not familiar with the tour part of the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign, we're going to be hiking and backpacking around 3 different metropolitan areas this year. COVID willing, fingers crossed, we're good to go. But we're hiking around the city of Chicago, 220 miles on the Chicago Outer Belt in partnership with the Chicago Outer Belt Alliance. We're hiking like 270 miles across the state of Michigan from lake to lake into the city of Detroit in partnership with the Michigan and Trails and Greenways Alliance, and then wrapping things up in Washington, D.C. in September with the Capitol Trails Coalition. All of these organizations are deeply committed to connecting existing pedestrian walkways, trail systems, building new things, building connectors, so people can get out and recreate right here. Like you don't have to go out to the backcountry. You don't have to do the entire Pacific Crest Trail to have a healing experience in nature. You can do it in your own backyard. So thank you. It's like I mentioned before, as far as I know, this is the first outdoor brand that's like really gotten behind a diabetes specific hiking campaign. And hiking doesn't have to be big, huge miles, right? Like it could be a walk around your neighborhood. That's how I got started. So thanks for helping us like expand the definition of what a hike is and making sure that people are connected with great shoes, which brings me to our first point. I'm going to throw up these pictures because like these shoes are so sick. So guys, if you're registered for Take a Hike Diabetes, if you complete 4 activities per month, you can win a pair of X Ultra 4 GTX shoes. all you got to do, we get one pair a month. Salomon's like chucking shoes our way left and right, guys. This is nuts. So we're giving away a pair today to kick things off. Our next pair will be given away during the March campaign. But all you got to do to win is register for Take a Hike Diabetes and then log 4 activities per month to be entered to win that pair of shoes. So Becky, talk to me a little bit about these shoes and why you're so stoked on them.
Yeah, so this is a brand new product relaunch, I'll say. So the X Ultra 3 has been in the market. The X Ultra franchise, I guess, has been in the market for a few years. It's our best-selling hiking shoe. It comes in a Gore-Tex version like this one. It comes in a low and a mid. There's a lot of different varieties of it. But it's just like your classic, super stable, really good fitting hiking shoe that can kind of take you on any terrain. And this one is our latest and greatest version of it that literally is just hitting the market now. So just a great chance to kind of get the latest in that technology that I was talking about from Salomon, and this shoe can kind of take you anywhere. So we're excited about it. Excited to offer it to you.
I'm a speed cross gal and a cross hike gal. Guys, look at the tread on these. This is so I'm holding up my leg for everybody who's listening to the podcast. Is this kind of what we got going on the bottom of the X Ultras?
Oh, it's a little different than that. The Cross family has those like super knobby lugs on them for really technical terrain. And that shoe that you're wearing is like a super kind of light and fast type of shoe for that type of consumer. I think the X Ultra is sort of like the wide gamut, do-all classic hiking shoe. So doesn't quite look like that on the bottom, but it's equally as stable and grippy, just a slightly different lug pattern.
Nice. And I know we had some people that were curious. They're new to the Salomon world. As far as like wide sizes go, do you sell wide specific, or are there models that are wider than others?
Yeah, great question. We do sell some wide models. This shoe does come in a wide version. I believe in the low. It definitely does in the mid. So yes, this shoe is a pretty classic fitting shoe as well. But if you're someone that traditionally needs that wider width, yes, we do have some. Not all of our shoes come in a wide, but some certainly do. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Well, I'm going to share the next part because this is a part that I'm really excited about. So in addition to a free pair of shoes every month that you can be eligible to win, Salomon has generously, and like by generously, I mean like I'm going to like pee a little generously, agreed to match the next $5,000 that we raise within the Kilter campaign. So what does that mean? If you go to kilterrewards.com/event/take-a-hike-diabetes. That will be in the show notes. When you go to our event to register, you sign up, enter your name, pick a team. You can join Salomon Team Time to Play, and then you sync your fitness tracker and start tracking miles towards our 1 million mile goal. And within the app itself, you can click to donate yourself. So if you got some extra bucks kicking around, you want to throw them our way, make this world a better place and help us run this program for diabetes awareness and management, you can do that. Or you can click get donations in the app, and that will give you a little like copy and paste code where you can put in, I'm going to hike 500 miles this year and I'm asking for X amount of dollars. And then it gives you like pre-populated stuff that you can text, you can email, you can post on social. And that link that it populates is your link. So any contribution that your friends or family or coworkers make will go toward your fundraising total. So we have some really awesome prizes for people for fundraising milestones. If you register at the $15 level, you get the access to the Take a Hike Diabetes program. $35 gets you the glow in the dark Hiking My Feelings water bottle. It's a Nalgene. It literally glows in the dark and it's super freaking cool. $50 gets you the dope hat that glows in the dark as well. I have a thing about glow in the dark stuff if you haven't noticed already. At $100, you get the t-shirt. At $250, you get the hoodie. At $500, you get the annual membership to our Summit Circle program, which gives you access to things like this, the virtual campfire, where you can win awesome prizes from our partners and sponsors, like a free pair of shoes from Salomon. So we've got all kinds of cool stuff going on. I am really excited to see how the community shows up and comes together and like doubles that money. Like, I feel like, is that like Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune or like I don't know. I feel like there's some game show where they're like, and magically 5,000 becomes 10. And I'm like, yay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So cool. Becky, what do you guys have coming up that you are allowed to share with us? Anything exciting on the product development front that we can get stoked about?
Oh gosh, where do I start? So much. I think, I didn't know this was going to be a question. I'm here on the spot. How do I choose? I think something to note about Salomon is all of the incredible work that we're doing on the sustainability side of product development. This is not new for Salomon. We've actually been doing it for decades, and actually haven't done a wonderful job at talking about it. So we're trying to figure out how to share those micro stories as they come up. But we have a really cool circular economy concept shoe that's coming out next month. Essentially, it's a performance road running shoe that can be broken down and recycled at its end of life, and it will be turned into a ski boot in our range, which is like so cool.
Wow.
It's called the Index 01. It's been all over the press and the news. You can read all about it if like that type of thing is your jam. We're building like a beautiful new factory in Annecy, France, where our headquarters is, just to really cut down on transportation lines within our European markets. We just opened a beautiful DC here in Ogden, Utah, that's like super, super green. All of our shoes as of last season are PFC free, which I don't know if you guys know about that, but it's PFCs are in waterproofing, jackets, backpacks, Gore-Tex, footwear, whatever. And we were able to get all PFCs out of those waterproof membranes, which is no small feat. So that's really cool. All of our shoe boxes and packaging is FSC certified, which means that we have to have like a kind of a third-party stamp of approval for every tree that we cut down for any packaging or shoe box that we create. So, gosh, I could go on. There's just so many amazing things that the brand is doing to lead the industry, and we're really proud of that. And you'll start to see more and more of these stories come out. We never want to just sort of put them out to put them out. It's like, how do we really be authentic with the things that we're doing and share with everyone the stories that feel right at the time. So anyway, I think that's a fun fact to share.
That's a great fun fact. So people can go to salomon.com, follow, it's at Salomon on Insta. Any other things? Time to play, hashtag it up. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, that's perfect. You can also go, well, we're in the middle of a big website relaunch, but we have some really cool blog content that's coming through there. As you know, Sydney will be writing a blog for us in the coming weeks. So anyway, there's lots of ways to engage with our brand. You can also find us on YouTube. We have what we call Salomon TV, and there's tons of incredible stories, what kind of longer form content storytelling that we push through that if you're into the video space. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support. Everybody in the Zoom is like, oh my God, what? We get shoes? This is cool. So someday I'll be like Oprah, I'll be like, everyone gets shoes. So thank you so much for everything. We really appreciate your support, and we look forward to just hiking our faces off and making things happen. So thank you.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And
yeah. Do you want to pick the winner,
great.
or do you want to announce it? I can put it in the chat so you can see it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let me get to the chat here. I'm going to send it to Becky, and then Becky can announce it. What do we got? All right. Come over here so they can see the screen when I do it. Okay, so Becky, tell us who the winner is.
Okay, lucky winner is Mary Romanovsky.
What? Yay! So there's our little, oh, it's up there. That one. So there's our little screen thing. It says, oh, down. Yep, yeah. Mary, you're the winner. Yay, Mary. Congratulations. Awesome. Thank you so much, Becky. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Oh, all right. Bye. This is so exciting. Okay, so up next, we have my friend, a life-changing person who has absolutely blown me away with her style and sass and realness and truth and embodiment. Miss Stacy Jordan Shelton, come on down. The price is right. Oh, my Lord. Oh, it's so good to see you. I can't deal.
Good to see you. It's been so long.
I know. So Stacy is a performance consultant. She's a coach. She's helping women leaders move from F this S to freedom. Wow, ma'am. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, and then let's just jump into a conversation here around the campfire.
Sure. So for people who don't know me, I'm Stacy Jordan Shelton. I am a performance consultant and coach. My background is in training and organizational development and performance consulting, which I like to tell people my job was to boss leaders around and help them close performance gaps. So whatever wasn't working, wherever they were not getting the kind of results that they wanted, that's my thing, right? I like to tell people I kind of play around in the dissonance and figure out what's happening and help people shift. But I started doing this work in the way that I do it now because I felt like the work was incomplete. So a lot of performance consulting is really process focused. And if it is people focused, to me, it didn't go deep enough. So it's either looking at people or the process or the systemic level of problems. And with the people stuff, it was everything just kind of went into a couple categories. It was either they don't know enough or they're not, motivated enough. And I'm like, this isn't enough, right? There's always a why. And so if folks aren't motivated, if people aren't performing, what I discovered in doing the work was that usually there's, not always the problem. The problem isn't always the process. The problems are some of the things that keep people from showing up to the process. And those can be a myriad of things. That can be grief, that can be socialization, that can be trauma. And so I wanted to do more work to dig into helping people really get unstuck, as opposed to just telling them they need to hustle harder, they need to be more motivated. All of our cultural stuff that just says, if you're not getting what you want, it's because you're not trying hard enough. It's because you're not doing enough, or, maybe you just don't deserve it. Maybe you're just not cut out for this. And I was really kind of tired of that being the messaging. And I'm like, let me do something about that. So I did something about that.
Yeah, you did, I'll say. So for folks that aren't familiar with Stacy or don't know our relationship, I think we connected around the 2016 election for sure. I don't know, maybe it was from Desiree or Crystal or someone else, but either you commented on something or I saw somebody shared your post and I was like, I need to get to know this lady. And then it started with Unraveled was the program that I went through. And so I've shared this with our group. And because now I talk about unpacking my trauma pack and I'm like, guys, where this really started, where I got the bravery to do what I'm doing now was working with Stacy through this Unraveled program. So Stacy is a fantastic knitter. If you haven't seen the profile picture for this event, go to our website, go to Eventbrite, go to our social media and check it out. She makes these beautiful pieces. And at the time, Stacy was using this metaphor of unraveling. Do you want to explain that for folks so they can kind of get an idea of what that work is and where it started?
Yeah. It was definitely inspired by my knitting. And what I thought about, what I was thinking about was, as you're knitting, sometimes you get a snag, right? So sometimes the yarn is in a knot and it's, snagging. And it's keeping you from continuing the project, right? And in order to continue the project, you have to unravel that knot, right? You have to find it and figure out where it's all balled up and literally sit there and unravel it and unknot it so you can free up the yarn, right? Free up the materials. And I was like, isn't that how some of this stuff is, right? It is literally, we keep hitting these roadblocks or we keep experiencing these same patterns and we keep, dealing with the same old BS. And it's like, can we just figure out what the root is, find it, unravel it, deal with it, and then figure out, okay, now you got all this yarn freed up. What do you want to make? What do you want it to be, right? So you're so used to being stuck and not being able to move forward and not being able to complete anything. What can we do, right? And so that became the metaphor that I used for the work, and the program is really, and I still weave that work in to everything that I do, because that is like the basis for the work. But it was really, I created a process to really help people get laser focused and identify exactly what their issue is that is keeping them stuck. Help them reframe it, help them contextualize it, help them get free from it. And also, because you've been in a space with me before, but we do a lot of talking about really setting yourself free, because so many people internalize what happened to them, or where they're feeling stuck as something being wrong with them. And so we really unpack a lot of that stuff. And then it's this, once people, it's like this one big exhale. And then once we get past that point, it was like, all right, now, what are we going to do now? What do you want to do? And I think that one of the beautiful things about the unraveled work and the way that I move in the work is that it gave other people a language and some tools that they could use on their own. And like, if you did that work, you can start to identify where you're feeling stuck. Like, breathe through it, deal with it, release it, let it go. No, it's not yours, and get moving, keep moving, right? I just wanted to help people stop getting stuck. And so I love, 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 love that work. It's coming back in a different form. So it'll be back, but it'll be more like the springboard for the rest of the work, because I feel like it's just that important.
Can we talk about what you got going on your hand here? If you're listening to the podcast later, she has an entire crystal on a ring. Is that what I'm looking at? Girl, what is that?
It's a it's a pyrite. It's a piece of pyrite. Right. It's a piece of pyrite from an artisan and jeweler. And I love.
She is going to take somebody all the way out with that thing.
Everybody's like, if you hit somebody with something, like, I'm not breaking my ring. I'm not breaking my ring. Yeah, I love, like, folks that know me know I love crystals. I love jewelry. So this is my baby.
Man, I'll tell you what, she can mess somebody up. You don't need brass knuckles. She's got crystal knuckles, y'all. It's good. So yeah, so unraveled. Stacy, I'm just going to say it, and then I'll send you the sound bite so you can use this as a testimonial, and I'm going to try not to cry and get through this, but I need you to hear me. None of what you see here, this organization, these people in this Zoom, this program, none of this would be possible if I hadn't learned how to identify how to get stuck and move through it in such a beautiful way with you. And I mean that. Like, yes, I've done the work, and God knows I've sacrificed a lot to make this happen. I'm not going to discredit the effort I've put in, but to even get to the point where I, one, felt like I had permission to go dream this big, talk about audacious, and we'll get into Audacity here in a minute, but like, who is Sydney Williams to think that she could create everything that I've created in the past 3 years? Like, who? And well, actually, and I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure I got this from you. You were like, who aren't you to go do this thing? Because you saw it, Barry saw it, everybody around me sees it before I see it. Barry has a phrase, he's like, hear me now, believe someone else later, because it usually has to come from somebody who's not my husband. But honestly, Stacy, like the metaphor is beautiful. I'm a sucker for a metaphor. And I think that that's why a lot of people are connecting with the work that we're doing here, because when I was on Catalina Island, and I had gone through your program, and I was like feeling lighter because I was able to think in this way and like realize, like, I hear this voice in my head. I'm like, ooh, that's nasty. Like, I would never say that to myself. Once I identify these things, like, and start to move through it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I have tools that I can use. And for me, it felt like I was just like dumping this backpack full of all my stuff everywhere. And that, like, to be able to have a visual, and for us, a visual that connects to an activity. So like, not only do we do this work and we talk about it, but then we can go out on the trail and have these experiences. Like, I just thank you. Like, I owe so much credit to you for seeing me, for not putting up with the stories I was telling myself. I was small when I met you, girl. Like, I was this big. So thank you.
The thing, you were not small, and it was like, what is going on? Like I think everybody that met you was like, ooh, she's a star, right? But it was just like, oh, when is Sydney gonna have her own show? Oh, when is Sydney gonna do that? Like, nothing you do is a surprise to anybody. But like, that's the thing, right?
Except for myself.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, as soon as you start talking, everybody's like, oh yeah, she's brilliant. Okay, right. But like, that's the lie that trauma tells us, right? And to be quite honest, that's the lie that haters will tell you, or people who are, invested in you being small or need you to be small for them to feel okay, right? Like, so we get it from everywhere. So like, it is not a surprise to me that a lot of us have this, who am I to do this? Or I'm not good enough. And I'm always like, start where you are and iterate and evolve as you go, because that's really the work, right? And we got to take perfection off the table as a prerequisite for worthiness, as a prerequisite for deserving success, as a prerequisite, or as the definition of good enough, right? Like, because it does, first of all, it doesn't exist. And second of all it does is keep you trapped, and afraid to try something, right? And you brought up, permission. And, I can talk about this stuff forever, but like, the whole game is about, like, and it's set up culturally. It's gatekeeping, and it's, someone has to approve you, and somebody has to tell you it's okay. And it's like, tell yourself it's okay. Give yourself permission. And so, like, a lot of the work in Unraveled, once we get past the what is the thing that's keeping you stuck, then we go back into dream mode, right? Then it's like, all right, well, now I'm gonna lean in and be like, well, what do you really want, right? And people were just like, I never had time to think about it. And I'm like, I guess you didn't. I feel like that, like, it's a scam. It's a scam, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I bet you didn't know, because guess what? All of these people who need you to feed the machine, or who need you to be small so that they can get what they need, of course you haven't thought. Who has had time to think about it, right? And so it is a shift into, like we were talking about self-care and community care, but it's a shift into learning how to be self-possessed without being selfish or thinking you're selfish. And then, reclaiming that power and really getting free from a lot of the stuff. Because like, I tell people all the time, self-talk is not your talk. It's talk that you incorporated into your talk, right? All self-talk is something somebody else projected onto you or told you about yourself, or you picked up from somewhere. Like, we don't come here thinking that we're awful, and we don't come here thinking that we're not enough. We get indoctrinated into that over time. And so, like, I love to ask people, who is that really talking to you when you're talking to yourself? Like, whose stuff is it? And like you said, I would never talk to myself this way, or I would never let anybody talk to anybody I love this way. Right.
And I think that's a good distinction too, because like, it's not always easy, because it's hard to arrive at, I wouldn't talk to myself this way, because I'm like, I've been talking to myself this way. So to flip it and say, no, I wouldn't talk to my best friend that way. I wouldn't talk to my mother that way. I wouldn't let somebody talk to them that way. When we remove ourselves, then we can kind of like subversively like come back into ourselves, I think, a little bit on that.
Well, and I think if you think about it from the aspect of, I would never let anybody talk to anybody I love this way, then you you can look at it and go, ooh, this is bad, right? And so what I want people to do is get to the place where they include themselves in the people that they love, right? Include yourself in that. So like, I was, in the House of Audacity in my Facebook group, where I'm always like in there cutting up, talking to people and whatnot. Like, one of the things I said was, I don't say anything bad about me to me, right? I'm just not. And I was laughing as I was talking about Muhammad Ali, right? Every time he got in front of anybody's camera, anybody's mic, he's like, I'm the greatest, right?
Yeah.
And that's fun and funny, and we loved him for it. But like, really, I want people to examine what they say to themselves, right? Usually it's a barrage of, I can't, I'm never going to be able to, or whatever. And it's like, where did those beliefs come from, right?
Ooh, yes. Where do they come from? Because like, so for some, I like the comments are blowing up. They're like, oh my God, I needed to hear this. Like, what's going on? Who is this woman? How do I meet her? Welcome to the world of being involved with Stacy Shelton. So for somebody, I have a couple questions. We'll start with this one. For somebody who's like watching this or listening back to it and they're like, I just can't even get there. Like where does somebody start on this journey?
Well, look, can I cuss even though you don't cuss? I mean, I feel like
yes, ma'am.
Right. So I tell people that it the first part of getting free, like before I always told people before the truth can set you free, you have to recognize which lies are telling you hostage. And so for me, the very first thing that has to happen is you have to really be honest with yourself. And you do have to kind of come to this fuck that shit moment, right? You have to be like, I'm tired of this, and admit to yourself that you don't, that you, it's not enough, right? That you want something else. Because we also get, I think, groomed into like a false sense of gratitude, right? Yes, I am grateful for everything that I have. But if there are places where I am struggling or I am suffering, like I don't believe in that, right? So it's like start to really be honest with yourself about the things that are not sustainable. And if your life doesn't look like what you really want it to look like, you have to be honest about that. And so I think that radical, I don't say honesty because honesty is just like I'm gonna say what's coming up for me, but I think it's more radical truth, right? And really giving yourself permission to say like this is not enough, I think is the first step. But after that is really for me getting into a space with somebody who can actually hold the space, and who can help you navigate really unpacking it, because it's a lot of stuff. It's really I have a background in diversity and equity work, right? So certified diversity and equity, inclusion facilitator, all that stuff. And so like the lens that I bring to the work is really understanding, like, really sometimes you got to have somebody that understands how oppression operates, how trauma operates, because we don't just end up with all of this mess and this big ball of knotted yarn. It's usually something happened to us that impacted our identity, right? Or like, well, I'll just say that's it. Like, to me, it's really like impacted their identity, impacts our identity, and then that shapes how small we think we are, or how capable we think we are, or how powerful or powerless, right? And then you think about if you are a part of any community that's considered a marginalized identity in any way, that stuff is by design, right? They want you to feel small. They want you to feel powerless. So you have to really start to be honest about that, and like start to be able to tell the radical truth about the world itself, right? So that you're not gaslighting yourself, right? So that you're not holding yourself to this impossible standard, right? You're not you know sometimes like it's the metaphor where people are like, you have the same amount of hours in the day as Beyonce.
Bullshit, I do. She's got an entire team of people who cook her food and do her hair, and like she doesn't check her email. Are you kidding me?
She's got a staff, right? And so like we gotta stop. It's all of that. It's the bootstrap mentality. So we are holding ourselves to this impossible standard. We're killing ourselves trying to live up to it. And it's like, I'll be talking about this in my group tomorrow, but like, you gotta lower your expectations. And I don't mean lower your standards. That's two different things. But you have to shift, right? You have to shift into, and we have to shift culturally into, to be honest, just being a less ableist culture. Like, we got to be less ableist. Like, look, you are one person. And if you're one person and you're a solopreneur or you're a team of two, you cannot compete with Amazon. You cannot compete with these other things. And so, like, we have to find new and creative ways to move in the world. But but first of all, you got to stop telling yourself that you're a failure, right? Because you're not. I feel like any day you show up with a fraction of the resources of all the people that we compare ourselves to, you are winning, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's so important too. And that was a hard learned lesson for me in 2019. So I come from a corporate marketing background. The campaigns that I used to run had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars behind them. And I'm like, I got a good brain. I'm a smart lady. I'm an excellent communicator and I'm damn good at what I do. However, the big missing piece was the money. And I was like, oh, you mean people don't just like get behind ideas and then shit magically happens? That's not the way it works. That's so weird. Because I was going around the country and I was like, I'm sorry, Hiking My Feelings is a brilliant marketing campaign. Like, if nothing else, it is a beautiful container to talk about mental health in the outdoors. And then it evolved into everything else that it was. But I was like, how are people not like, either I'm delusional and I don't know what I'm doing, or this sucks and nobody's telling me, or the reality is I don't have the resources to get the word out in that way. And then, oh, okay, well, I'll do the best I can with what I got. And I love the distinction between lowering your expectations and lowering your standards. That is one of those life-changing reframes that I'm kind of obsessed with, and I might have to steal. What I got to know, because so much of the work, like, because we're so busy and we're so go all the time. And then COVID happened. So like, I was in the height of my career. I was high powered corporate lady, marketing communications professional, working in wild hours, tiptoeing towards my deathbed with the diabetes and panic attacks and everything I was up against. Like, what have you seen from the people you work with? Like, what was the shift like last year for you, now that everybody has this space to sit with all the knots in their yarn projects and stuff like that?
Well, I think what if there was anything good about this whole situation, it was that it did force folks to slow down a little bit, right? I'm still not finding that a lot of people are actually doing their work though, right?
Yes, that's
So
frustrating to witness. You have time.
yes, but like that's not what we're used to, right? I still see people holding themselves to a ridiculous productivity standard, and I'm like, hello, loves, we are in the middle of a traumatic event, right? Like, it's just not gonna happen. I I feel like there are people who are they're slowing down because they don't have a choice, but I don't feel like they're embracing it, right? And one of the things that I'm always telling people is like, first, like when things are going haywire for me, like, and I came out 22 years out of corporate culture, right? That was 22 years of my life. So when people are all, we're taught that when things are not going well, push, right? Go harder, work longer. And I'm telling people to do the opposite, right? When things are going haywire and things are not working, I want you to like stop. I want you to slow down. I want you to reflect, and give yourself some space, right? That's what I want people to do. I want somebody to go breathe. I want somebody to go with you and go take a hike, right? Like, go do that. I don't want you to push yourself past your limits. I don't want you to hustle harder. I want you to give your brain and your body and your heart a break. I probably want you to do some unpacking, because a lot of times when we're pushing, it's because we're avoiding the trauma, or we're trying to push through the trauma, or we're trying to avoid, doing the introspective work. And that does require somebody that does know how to hold the space and does know how to help you navigate it. But like, we just keep running from the thing or trying to push past the thing, and it still catches up with us later. So I do think there is a little bit more openness, I think, for some to have the conversation, really, because they don't have anything else to do. Everything is closed. So, right?
It's hard to cope when your coping mechanisms don't exist currently.
Right? Like, we can't go out, we can't go do the things that normally make us feel good, right? And so some people are seeking or getting more aware that, we probably need to do more kind of healing type work. But I still see a lot of, like I said, a lot of the, you see the memes, like if you haven't launched your business in a pandemic, it's like, look.
Who?
Right?
I mean, like we kind of did, but like still gross. Ew.
Started your business before the pandemic. You started your business and then the pandemic hit and you had to pivot. But like telling people that if they haven't managed to make their thing happen in the pandemic, it's like, oh, stop that. Right? Like
It's not nice.
It's well, and if you're still like, really? Like, and like you talked about resources, it's like, right? Like, and I even stopped comparing myself to other like entrepreneurs. Because like you said, the people that are like ramping up fast have tons of money to put on ad spend. And that still doesn't mean it's not possible, right? And so part of that is like, really, like we always hear the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. You really have to stop comparing yourself to these ridiculous standards. And we are the land of the dream. So it's like, results not typical, right? Needs to be a disclaimer so that you stop telling yourself, right? Like, so you stop telling yourself when you didn't hit that $1 million in your first year that like you're not cut out for this or your work doesn't matter, right? So it's just, like I said, it's learning to like really be honest about the world and take things into perspective. I always talk about getting free from the beliefs, the binaries, and the behaviors that don't move you forward, right? And I think
I really like that. Yeah. So one of the things, like there's a lot of Stacyisms that stick out in my mind. And one of the most powerful conversations we had was in 2019. I was sitting in Folsom, California in the van. It was 105 degrees outside. I was sweating bullets. Like we were on tour. We were trying to find like the campground Shocker was booked on a Saturday in June. And I had to like go to a hotel casino and like sleep in the parking lot in my van. It was a whole big thing. But I remember I was at Folsom State Park. The lake was behind me. The prison's behind the lake. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to you. And you told me, Sydney, stop proving that you're good. Like you're good. What was I doing? What did you see that I was missing? And like one of the things that I love most about you is how deeply and easily and powerfully you see people. Like, what was that for you? Because you even said, you're like, Sydney, I'm going to put on my big sister voice. I need you to hear me. Like, how did we get there?
I remember that conversation so clearly. Because well, we're just gonna say it. Because Sydney has this big heart and is always trying to save folks from themselves. And even when folks were not like rising to the occasion, or she was doing all the heavy lifting, and she was just like, but I gotta keep going. And like it always felt like it was this sense of if you had good boundaries around like some stuff is other people's stuff to handle, right? Like, and you are support, not the savior, right? And so it was like, what do the boundaries look like between I'm a supportive friend, whatever, versus I'm trying to save this person. And it felt like, whenever things started to fall apart, usually not because you weren't doing anything, it was like, oh, I need to go. And if I say enough, and if I say, okay, I need to set a boundary, it was like you were in anguish around, am I harming this person? I'm like, Sydney, you got to stop trying to prove to people that you're good. You've already done so much, right? Like, that is not the thing. But, when we get told all the time that unless we give, and unless, I think for women especially, that we have to sacrifice everything and put everything out for everyone else and we come last, that we do get gaslit a lot into believing that, oh, if you tell me no, you're not a good person, or you don't love me, or you don't, right? Like boundaries, boundaries are like bad. And so I was like, girl, you can stop trying to prove these people that you are good.
And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, and you won't be surprised, that lesson has come up time and time again. I'm learning it. It keeps it, but it manifests in different ways. And so I want people to listen. Like, if you have had a moment and you've been like, your course has been corrected, whether that's the help of your therapist or a friend who sees you or something, that doesn't mean the lesson never comes back up again. Like, it will manifest differently and you'll be able to handle it differently. But I mean, I still do this. I'm getting better at it, but I wouldn't be as equipped today to handle the things the way I do today if you didn't have I'm not even going to say courage, if you weren't you, because not everybody can say that. And I think as trauma survivors, specifically to your point about, like, as women, yes, we feel like we have to show up in this way, but as trauma survivors too, like, I'm looking back and now it's been years since I've had some of these interactions. The thing that I still get tripped up on, and that is my work and will probably be my work for the rest of my life. And that's not to say that I'm lazy or that I'm giving up, but that's just the reality. And I'm taking the pressure off myself because I don't fix this overnight, is that I want to be the person who I needed in those similar situations. And I want to show up and be like, ooh, I got you. I will be here when everybody else abandoned you, when everybody else left you. I'm good. I got you. And that ain't healthy either.
Because then we end up in this codependent pattern, right, with folks, where, you know, if you're trying to do for people things that they should, and I say should loosely, but like do for themselves, because you know, I believe that self-care is an oxymoron, right? Because our identity of self is not formed on our own, it's formed in community. And so self-love and self-care, those things are oxymorons, because in order to really have great self-care, you have to have support, right? But support does not mean I'm doing everything for someone else, right? And I love that you brought up the lifelong work piece, because I think that's a big misconception when it comes to therapy, when it comes to coaching. People think, I'm going to take this course and all my things are going to be solved. And what I tell people is, getting free is a process, staying free is a practice, right?
Yes. Oh, say that again. Like, just let people hear that. Sink it in, folks.
Right. Getting free is a process, staying free is a practice. So like this imaginary arriving is not it, right? Like, if you have trauma, if you have grief, if you have other stuff, there's going to be things that trigger that. And you have to be able to use your tools in the moment, right? To not repeat the same patterns, right? So like you said, the opportunity for you to resist having to prove to someone that you're good will come up again, right? But you know, as we develop a practice, right? As we develop and start to learn and use other tools, then we're not repeating the same patterns, right? We're not repeating the same patterns, and it is a practice, and sometimes it is lifelong work. Like, things are going to trigger me, right? That's just the reality of being someone who had trauma, right? And not everything is trauma, but we could talk about that a different day. But
we'll have you back for that.
not getting your way and having your feelings hurt is not necessarily trauma. But like, there are people who have real trauma and they have this, again, lower your expectations, which I'll be talking about. But like, we have this expectation that it's supposed to be quick, it's supposed to be easy, I'm never supposed to have to deal with this again. And that's not fair. And I think it sets us up for really negative self-talk and beating ourselves up. And it's like, nope, this is a practice I'm developing of when I face this thing, what do I do now, right? What tools do I need, right? So if I'm starting to feel anxious and I'm starting to feel like literally I need to remind myself to breathe, or I need to unplug and go take a walk, right? We have different tools. And so that's a lot of the work that we do in my spaces too, around helping people be able to self-regulate and self-manage so that they don't develop unhealthy patterns of how they deal with it, right? Sometimes you don't even need to be responding, right? I go tell people, go figure out how you feel first, right? Go figure out how you feel before you do anything.
Man, yeah, I'm gonna write that down. Go figure out how you feel. That happened at 55 and perfect. Okay. So if you had a magic wand, and there's so much going on in the world between the pandemic and all the social uprising, everything that's been like life in America is wild. If you had a magic wand for any of the issues that are on your heart or on your mind, what would be like, what would happen after you waved your magic wand? What kind of improvements would we see?
Oh, if I had a magic wand, everyone would have integrity.
Yes. Everyone would have integrity. Yes. Tell us more.
Everybody would have integrity. And I think that would and everybody would take responsibility for themselves, right? So that with integrity comes accountability. And I just think, if I had a magic wand, everyone would have the right support, right? There would really be, and all those things are sort of intertwined for me. But like all this rugged individualism would go away. It would really be more community, more integrity, more really caring about how we impact other people. That's the first thing that comes up for me.
I love that. And when you think of self-care as community care, what does that mean to you? And how does that work in the spaces that you occupy?
For me, it means a little bit of what I just said, right? Like we take responsibility for the energy that we bring, but we also are able to support one another and hold one another and be present for one another, right? Like it's not enough to go tell a single mother with 3 kids that has to work 2 jobs that she needs to rest, right? Like that's some BS. We're supposed to do that.
Help her rest. Yeah.
Help her rest, right? So that's what I mean by self-care is community care. Like, how are we creating these structures of support so that we can just do the things that we tell people so blithely? Girl, you need to go get some rest. Well, you know what? As somebody that has a relative amount of privilege and who doesn't have kids at home, and I'm not in the pandemic trying to worry about how I'm going to homeschool my kids now because nobody can be in school and work, right? I don't have that. And so we have to start thinking about, it's the thing that we talk about in social justice spaces and in equity spaces, that you center the most marginalized, right? And so that's what community care means to me. You center, and for me personally, I think if we center children and the most like if we start thinking about what support looks like for that, right, then that looks like support. What does that mean for support for the family? Like food, housing, shelter, needs, right? What's a utility versus what's a luxury, right? Rethinking community and rethinking support so that it is real support and not just always inspirational support, right? It's like support that people can actually use. Like if I have a friend who is knee deep in grief and a caretaker, telling her to rest is garbage. Maybe I need to hire a housekeeper. Maybe I need to go over there and help, so like really learning how to care for people in a way that is supportive, gives them space, and is compassionate, I think.
Oh God, I love you. So what is House of Audacity? What do you got coming up and how can people get involved and work with you?
House of Audacity, thank you. That's my fun, free Facebook group. And that's where I just show up. That's my home online. But what I have coming up is my big cohort that I run every year is Audacious, which is some work around helping people really reclaim definition of themselves and their lives and what they wanted to look like and really develop the plan to get there. But while we're doing that, we're also unpacking the other stuff. We're talking about what's keeping you from executing, and we're looking at the mindset stuff, right? And not just this, you need a better money mindset. It's like, no, honey, you need to go do some grief work, right? Like we like, oh, that's anxiety. Let's talk about how we deal with that. Oh, wait, that's grief. Let's go, so we talk about the real things that keep people from showing up, and then you know, what does it look like? What gets put into practice? So all of my work always has I'm always talking about alignment between your mouth, your mind, and your emotions, like what you're doing. So word and deed. And that's coming up in April. So the doors are open for that. I'm slowly letting people in. We have a nice little cohort going. So that's what I'm doing. But if people want to hang out with me, just kind of get a feel for how I work, what I'm talking about, they can join me in that free Facebook group, the House of Audacity.
Perfect. And where do you have a website that people can find more information on as well?
Absolutely. They can go to stacyjordanshelton.com, and that's STACI, Jordan, JORDAN, Shelton, SHELTON.com.
Boom. I love it. Does anybody have any questions for Stacy? If you do, go ahead and pop on your camera. We got time for a couple, and then we'll bring on Mr. Jahmicah. Hi, Mary. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great, thanks.
Hey, Mary.
Hi. So my question, Stacy, is going back to the negative self-talk, and you're mentioning working with people to figure out like where that came from. Like they didn't start talking to themselves that way. It was they heard things that they've heard or seen. And I've really struggled with trying to figure out where that messaging came from with my own self-talk, like who or where I learned it. And so do you have strategies for that, or does it really matter at some point? Should I just kind of give up and say, well, I guess it doesn't matter where that came from and just stop doing it? Like how important is it to really get to the root of where it came from?
I think where it comes from matters. In the case of like, let's say, like if it's a societal thing, like you have to like get, oh wait, like you have to get to the place where you actually understand that there's like, maybe there is nothing wrong with me, right? There's this whole system that is telling me every day of my life that, you know, I am not enough or I am not attractive enough, right? So I think getting to the root of it, and it's a complex conversation because we do a lot of work of going into where it came from, what are the overarching messages, getting into historical context and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, but it will matter depending on how invested you are, right? So to me, once I, like in my experience, I really don't invest heavily into, like, if everything somebody tells me about me is bad, like, why am I listening to that? Right. And so, the work I do is like helping people examine it. And so once you start to examine it and pick it apart, you're like, oh, wait, this thing right here, or this person right here has never told me anything good about myself. Fuck that. Right. So
okay.
I think
so more like in the moment, once you're doing the work, then you start to recognize it more as you move forward through your life.
Yes. I just think it's a process. Okay. I think it's important to figure out where it came from and to contextualize it. Right.
Okay.
And that, like in my work. So that's how I lead people through the work. Some people are going to tell you, and I've seen other people and they get great results too, that are going to say, it doesn't matter. It matters to me because I think when people don't understand where it comes from, they continue to gaslight themselves and they go right back to the belief. Right?
Okay.
So
great, that makes sense.
It's like helping people unhook from the belief, not just challenge the belief, right?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, just kidding. Hey, helps if I unmute. Carrie, do you have a question too?
I do. I think it kind of comes off of what Mary just asked. I know where mine comes from. Mine comes from the voice of my mother. But what I have trouble with often is you say, lower your expectations and not your what's the word verbiage you used? Thank you. But I always feel like I'm lowering my standards rather than lowering my expectations when I try to give myself some space. So do you have any advice for kind of letting that go a little bit? Because I mean, I constantly beat myself up, like you're just lowering your standards, rather than, just maybe just calm down and.
Well,
Not do everything.
So I think it goes back to the Beyonce metaphor that we use, right? Like, I can only do so much, right? And what does, like, people love to talk about grace, but what does showing yourself some grace look like? Lowering my standards looks like, I'm going to accept less than I deserve, right? Or believing that I don't deserve good things. But lowering my expectations is like, I am letting go of the belief that I need to get a million things done in a day to deserve this thing. Or I'm like, I am exhausted and I am still talking bad to myself because I left some dishes in the sink. Like, no, I'm gonna go to bed and I'm gonna lower my expectation around this house has to be spot clean before I go to bed every night, right? Like, we got to stop or having the same level of productivity expectation as, people with a team or people that have a lot more or different support, right? That's what I mean by lowering your expectations, right? It's not, and you gotta, and so the work gets coupled with understanding where you learn that means, for lack of a better word, that I'm awful or I'm failing or whatever, right? Like, no, I'm not failing, right? I used to call my mom Mini Martha Stewart, and I'm like, lady, look, it's never gonna be that over here. I love you, and right? I love you, and so guess what? Right. I am lowering my expectations around me being the person that has to do all that. And I am allowing myself to get some support, right? I'm not telling myself I'm awful if I'm not good at this. I'm awful if I didn't get all these things done. I am literally looking at, especially if it's a long pattern, right? Like, there's some things I'm never going to be good at, right? Like, that's how, like, for like, to look at a practical example, like, think about how many of us really struggle with meal planning and figuring out those things. That's how, like, these services like HelloFresh and those kind of things were born, right? They figure out that people actually need support, right? They leverage the fact that we're not all good at everything. So it is giving yourself permission to not be good at everything and be like, and I'm still okay, right? And I'm still great. I'm still great, even if I'm not good at everything, right? That, like, we have to stop that binary that if I'm not great at all the things, I am awful, I am failing. It's like, I'm not good at that. And maybe I need some more support in that area. And maybe this gets done or pushed till tomorrow, and not tell myself a horrible story about myself because of it, right?
Yes.
Like, is it really the end of the world that, like, because I dare my family to say, like, it's like, I love y'all. And if I've been working all day, like today, I had meetings from 9 o'clock on. I bet you I'm not doing those dishes before I go to bed. I bet you I'm going to bed. I'm going to bed, right? Those dishes will be there and they will be fine. And if anybody does not like the fact that the dishes are there, then they are welcome to support me in getting that done.
I love you.
Right? Like, I'm going to bed. I'm going to get some rest. Good night. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I've literally been on call. So, like, I'm lowering my expectation. Now, if I have been listening to the voice in my mother's head, it is push through that. I don't care if you're angry, resentful, tired, and that kitchen better be spotless before you go to bed. Love you, Mom. Them dishes are about to be in the sink. They're gonna be in the sink, right? So it's learning how to, like, let myself off the hook and like. Now, am I saying I'm going to do that? Am I going to do that every day so that it never? No, I'm not saying that, but I am giving myself the space and the permission to give myself what I need in that moment most, which is some rest. And that I trust myself to get it done tomorrow. I trust myself. I'm trustworthy. So it'll get done tomorrow when I have a little bit more space, right? And so it's a different way of moving. And that's just, that's some of the work that we talk about. And those are some of the things that we talk through and work through.
Yes, ma'am. I love it. That's a good question, Carrie. And Stacy took us to church for a second, and I'm really not upset about it. Yeah.
I didn't ask Carrie if that helped, so I hope that helped.
I think it looks like it
Yes,
helps.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Yay. Well, Stacy, I honestly, like, you're more than welcome to come on this show whenever you'd like, because I love seeing your face. I love being in your energy. I love your power. I love all the different wonderful sound bites that I'm gonna be able to share so people can like recognize your brilliance on like a very deep level. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before you go today?
No, I mean, I love talking to people and helping people through this stuff. So if anything I said resonated, or you want to know more about my work, or you think you want to join me in Audacious, which is a 12-week container, just send me a note. You can go on my site and you can use the contact to talk to me, or you can go to stacyjordanshelton.com/audacious and see if it works.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We have Jahmicah coming up from Slim Pickins, but we close with a group gratitude circle. So if you want to stick around and like go around the circle and talk about what you're grateful for, we'd love to have you. But thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you.
Yay. All right, Mr. Jahmicah, come on down. So I talked to you guys about this. We shared an announcement about Slim Pickins at the beginning of the month. Actually, we shared the GoFundMe. I had just heard about it from S News. So Jahmicah is here. He is the founder and owner of Slim Pickins Outfitters, and they are the first Black-owned outfitters outdoor gear store in the United States. So it's Black History Month. This is a big deal, regardless of what month it is. This is a tremendous movement and milestone for the outdoor industry, for this world. So Jahmicah, thank you for joining us. I'd love to hear a little bit about you and how you guys got this store started.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me, Sydney. And Stacy, you killed it.
Isn't she wonderful? I love her so much.
You absolutely killed it. My goodness. That was stuff that I want my wife to hear. I want me as a Black male to hear. I want my siblings to hear. That was so rich. Especially the magic wand, and everybody would be have integrity, but also like have that community and have the support they need. Because I think that's a segue into what we're trying to do. And I think the fact that we're still going to be able to keep our doors open is because not everybody, I think, gets that. But we it's not lost on us that we had this this miracle, and people came and reached out and showed support and kind of gave us that brush of the magic wand. So we're Slim Pickins Outfitters. We're located in Stephenville, Texas, which is known as the cowboy capital of the world. So that's not really where you would expect, first and foremost, to have an outdoor shop. Secondly, definitely not have a Black-owned outdoor shop, but why not, right? We opened 2016, or sorry, we were founded in 2016, opened in 2017, and really we gave it our best effort. And it just wasn't working. And we needed help, and not just monetarily help. I think I needed help, and I talk about it in the film. I was not, my mental health wasn't where it needed to be, and it was taking a toll on me and my family, and kind of unbeknownst to me. And so it was this whole thing has been just, it's really surreal, right? It's really like getting your email and reading it and rereading it, and like, wait, they want to talk to us? Like, okay, we'll clean up our little corner in our bedroom, and we'll see how it goes. It's been just so cool, the support that we've had, and not just, I mean, the money is big, let's be honest, but the words of encouragement and affirmation, we will be feeding on those. We will be reading it to our kids. We'll be posting it up in the shop for other people to feed off of it for years and years to come.
It's such a beautiful display. And I think like our theme for February is self-care is community care, because February in general, Hallmark holiday for the Valentine's Day thing, just really focused on loving others and giving that love externally outside of yourself. So when I think of self-care and community care, I think the way that we talk about it in our space that we occupy here is like, when we can come home to ourselves and do the work to heal ourselves, whatever we're healing from, then we can show up more authentically and more powerfully for the people in our community. They kind of see your glow, your light, and they're like, oh, like, what's she sipping on? Like, I want some of that. Like, that stuff's good. And then the ripple effect from there is just huge. But what I saw with what you guys did, and I think like there's a lot of different questions that I have, but I think the first one is like, you mentioned that your mental health was not great. How was it hard to ask for help, or did people say, hey, how can we help you?
Let me clear, and I still struggle with that. I was depressed. I was suffering from anxiety. I still struggle with sometimes not sugarcoating it, but like just not saying it for what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Like recognizing it doesn't have, I mean, it is important, and it does have kind of effect, I think, power, but it doesn't have power over me. And the more I talk about it and I'm very transparent about it, the less power it has. So I apologize. I'm still working on that.
I love that. Amazing. So, amazing catch. No, and I'm the same. And like everybody in the comments is like, yeah, me too. I think that's beautiful. So working through that, living in this space where you're learning how to manage it, even learning how to talk about it. Did you guys say, oh God, we should start a GoFundMe? Who's going to help us? Or was like, did somebody say, hey, how can we help you? Like, what was the impetus that started this whole campaign?
You know, it was really and with the support that we had from the people doing the film, right? Wonder Camp, who provided the equipment, but shout outs to Justin Jeffers and Abdul Kasamali. They were the ones. They were the Black producer and director that told this story. And as we're telling it and going through the process of filming it, it was this story of like, hey, these are the struggles that we've been going through and we've been enduring. But really, I mean, still the question is like, what now? And now what? Like, those struggles just don't go away, right? And so it really was Brian, he fronted with the Outbound Collective. Julie Atherton with GM Collective, who's our PR firm, were like, hey, let's try to do this GoFundMe. And I was like, okay, I've heard of that, right? But what is that like? What does that mean? Like, really, it was one of the things of like, how would this work? And honestly, not in a negative way. Why would anybody care? But like, it wasn't like we hadn't tried and reached out to brands and to outdoor organizations and things before, right? And so it's kind of like we have tried that and we had gotten an answer. And so and you know, again, they just they brought their skill, they brought their talent, and they were the ones like, no, we don't want you to handle it, like, we're gonna do it. And so that was a really right, because that was the thing for me, is like, I love that concept. I'm still trying to like keep the doors open and keep our people,
run a business,
right,
be a husband, be a dad. Right. Yeah.
And so they're like, no, we'll handle it all, and they really have. And again, just the I think the results not just speak, but are continually to speak for them, are speaking for themselves. And one thing that we my wife and I were talking about, of like, when we talk about like true kind of allyship, that doesn't have an expiration date. And so honestly, people are like, oh, well, what do you go from here? And I said, well, time will tell. Time will tell for the people that are serious about supporting us in any way that they can, and not just us, but supporting and coming alongside. I think definitely people of color, but like there's not, I mean, Black-owned businesses, Black-owned brands in the outdoor industry. Time will tell, because allyship, it's not a trend. It's trending, but it's not a trend, and it doesn't have an expiration date. So
yeah, and I love it was kind of a Kamala Harris moment where you're like, yeah, we're the first, but we're not the only ones, because now with the splash that you've made, with the story that's being told, with the money you're raising, people are like, oh wait, there's Black people own businesses in the outdoor industry, like a lot of people's minds are blown.
Right.
And
right,
also you're not the only ones. Like I love, and I think that's another part of the community care too, that I'm going to be frank and say it, that white folks don't generally have as good of a grasp on, because we are so removed from community in a way that I feel like the Black community is not. And I love seeing all of the support
Mhm.
that you guys get from everyone now, but that it hasn't always been to the point of allyship is trending, but it's not a trend. Like, how can people start to understand that? And what if you had a magic wand for allyship as it pertains to this business, as it pertains to supporting other Black owned businesses and just in this world and in this industry in general? Like, what would your magic wand be for this space?
You know, I think if I had a magic wand, I think it would be about the outdoor industry meeting Black-owned businesses where they're at, and helping in a way that we need help, and not in a way that you want to help, because that's not really help. You know, and really, I guess that's help that's self-serving. So therefore, it's not really help. So I think really like with that is meeting us where we're at, and as you kind of talked about that quote of, you know, the outdoor mantra is leave no trace, right? And so, well, for me as a Black business owner, it's the exact opposite. I want to leave a trace. I want to show that not only I'm here, but I've been here, and I want to be here long enough so that other people see it and like, oh, cool, that's an option. I didn't know that was. And so, yes, it is an option. But I think also with that magic wand, by the time the next generation sees this, I not just hope, but we're also putting an effort to make this become a reality, that there's infrastructure that people can kind of come behind us and learn from some of our mistakes and our pitfalls. You know, I think the reality is that the outdoor industry for the longest time has not been equitable for people like me, both in the outdoors, but in the outdoor industry as it pertains to ownership and leadership. So like now it seems like there's kind of this reckoning. But again, like, what does that look like? I think that's the thing. And that's honestly that I'm kind of coming to the realization of, is like, oh shoot, like we're at the forefront. And so a lot of people are asking like, oh, this is great. Like, so glad that you're doing this. I'm like, no, we weren't trying to, or we're proud to do it, but we weren't trying to do that. We were trying to just survive. And I think when we talk about this term equity, yes, it applies to Black-owned businesses, but it applies to women-owned businesses, and it applies to other minority and BIPOC businesses, because they might not be the same, but they're in that same like area, if that makes sense.
Totally.
I might feel it a little bit more on maybe like a financial side. Somebody else might feel it more coming into like when they're meeting with brands and having a rep take them seriously. All of these things, like, so again, if we're kind of talking about this equity, is the fact that like we didn't start off on a level playing field. And so for brands and outdoor organizations to know that, are you going to meet us where we're at because of that?
Well, and I think too, like, so from my personal experience, the way that Hiking My Feelings got started was I quit my jobs. I sold everything I owned. I moved into a van old enough to buy beer, and I had credit available, and I worked for free. And I spoke at 60 different REI stores on my own dime. And I was okay with being aligned with that brand in particular because they were making an effort to increase inclusion in their marketing. And I want to be specific, in their marketing, and that's where it ended. And the question that I have for the outdoor industry and for anybody that's talking about how they're working in the equity space and working to support Black-owned businesses and Black creators and Black athletes and BIPOC in general, not just Black, but for the sake of this conversation,
Right.
when you brag about how much money you invest in these organizations, how much of a percentage of the money that you're investing goes to a Black-led organization? Because dollar for dollar, it's still abysmal and it's not acceptable. And that's the question that I was asking, is like, if you're coming out and you're like, hey, this is our equity and inclusion plan, we give lots of money. And it's like, okay, cool. But like, that's 5% of the money that you invest maybe goes to BIPOC businesses. Right. So how can folks who are passionate about this, who care about this, like whether that's internally on the brand side, or people like me who I don't work for any of these organizations. I'm trying to run my own nonprofit and figuring it out every day as I go. But how can we start to hold these companies who are like, look at my models, and hold them more accountable? Because like representation is very important, but the buck doesn't stop there. In fact, the buck needs to start there and continue like compiling like that. So how can we hold these people accountable and encourage them? And like, I feel like, do brands need permission to do this? Like, do they need to hear from more people that they should? Or like, what's the problem? Why is this not happening at the rate that I think it should be happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I appreciate your passion. I'll say this, that like my wife Heather was telling me that like I was getting frustrated about some things, and I was like, I'm just gonna say this. She's like, no, like let's not, like, first kind of calm down. Let's not necessarily say this. But what she said is like, we have people in our corner. We have people kind of in, you know, that are on our team and that are for us, that will say these things either in a way or to people that they have already have established relationships with, and kind of what Stacy was talking, and you're talking about, like, have accountability. They'll say it for us in a way that I think if I were to say it, unfortunately, it would come off like, oh, well, you know, that's just, he's kind of an overly aggressive, you know, Black man, like, you know, and there's going to be some doubt there. And so you know, that's, yeah, it's very interesting as far as you say, like with the marketing. And I would even say with that, as far as when we talk about marketing and inclusion, if you're marketing, if you're marketing to just say like, hey, like you said, we're this is our diversity, equity, and inclusion model, this is what we're doing, but your clothing line doesn't go above an XL. So
right, or your store is only in a white affluent neighborhood, right, and you're not actually in a place where other communities could shop. Yeah,
exactly. I was talking with a friend the other day, and he was saying, you know, a company reached out to, and he has a Black organization. So the company reached out to us and was like, you know, hey, how can we partner with you to maybe to maybe build one of our stores closer to we'll just say it, kind of like closer in the hood. And he was like, we don't need one of your stores, like we need green spaces. Like, would you be willing, instead of building your store, would you be willing to take that land and build a park so that like our youth have access to just to what it means and experience the healing power, nature, the healthy implications of just being outside.
And that's the difference between right, showing up and meeting you where you're at. That's a perfect example.
Because if not, then we're not on the same page. And so, you know, those kinds of questions, again, whether it's size, whether it's showing representation in their marketing. And I think not just that, but like real representation, you know, like there are very few, again, Black owned outdoor shops or Black owned brands that, why not try to use those actual people in your marketing? Well, but it might compete with, it doesn't matter. Like, again, like you make enough, like that, like it's that, you know, we are talking about redistributing the wealth as it is to monetary means, as it is to market shares. Are you willing to do that? And so again, time will tell. This is going to be an interesting adventure, right? This is like,
yeah.
And that's been so cool to see how many people have, not just in our corner and again, in other people's corner. And that's one of the things we're no longer even, and that's one of the ways that we define success here. We are no longer the only Black owned business. There's Mark Bowles with Intrinsic Provisions out of Massachusetts. Shout outs to them. But like, and all like all the other Black owned outdoor brands. Again, like, are you willing to really just kind of like meet them where they're at, give them the resources they need to not just survive but thrive, even if that means competing with some of your market share?
Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's like, and if the table doesn't exist, then we'll just build one, because like, we're tired of waiting for a seat. Like, how do we connect the dots? And that was the reason that I reached out to you, was what we're trying to do. And I think even like looking back, my email, I was like, how can I support you in the way that in the platform that I have, how can I support you? But also like underlying that was 100% not actually asking if this would benefit you. I want to share your story, which would benefit you, but like, what story do you want to tell? I think is the bigger and more important question. So in the case of like my column in Healthline, like the work that I'm doing is looking to connect the dots between trauma and diabetes. When we were going around the country in 2019, and again, this is not new information, but it started coming up more. A lot of people were like, I don't feel safe or represented in the outdoors. We heard it at my talks. I saw it at my talks. They were mostly at REI stores. I barely saw any people of color on my tour until I got to Atlanta. And then I had a racist interaction in that store, and it was awful. But like, when we hear that people don't feel safe and represented in the outdoors, I was like, that tracks. That makes sense. Okay, I don't see anybody out here who looks like this. We need to do better. And then I was doing research, pulling together the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign. And the people that don't feel safe or have access or have the ability or feel the resources to get equipment or whatever the case is, are also coming from communities that have the highest prevalence of diabetes.
Right.
So my lane, I'm like, okay, I had trauma. I also had access to the outdoors, and now my diabetes is well managed. If it's possible for me, how can I pass that experience on and make sure that everybody has access to have those kinds of resources and those kinds of experiences? So in my initial outreach, I was like, here's a Black-led store or Black-owned store in a non-Black community. Like, what is that doing for the community that you live in? And what is that doing for your peripheral community, whether that's online or, you know, your friends and family who don't live specifically in your local area?
You know, so, you know, I think as far as like what we're trying to do in our community, again, in a small town in Texas, is just get people out in the outdoors, to not have these gnarly, extreme, you know, trail hikes, just to get them outside and get them out on a trail, get them outside and get them out doing a community yoga, get them outside and getting out fly fishing for the first time, just getting them out. Then after we get them out, come back and tell us about your experience. And then we can talk about, okay, what kind of gear you need, or maybe what's going to be maybe best fitted to help you enjoy this again. But if you're not outdoors, then all this other stuff, and honestly, the gear doesn't really matter. That's why for us, we are so focused on community. That's why, like, it is vital to who we are as a shop, but I think it's also vital to later down the line our sales. But I think if we have this community that we're continuing to build, and also in that community using people from the community to help lead those groups so that they feel empowered to be able to do this, and kind of that each one teach one mindset of like, hey, once I make my space in the outdoors, then I'm going to bring somebody into that space. We always say, like, we want to learn about things from people that are passionate about those things. And so those are the same people we want to find to lead our community groups, so that they can, you know, like that passion's infectious, right? So that somebody else can catch it and then bring somebody else on, because that's how I got involved in the outdoors. That is, I had a traumatic experience, swore it off. It wasn't for me. Thanks, I got the hint. I'll just be inside and look at sneakers all day. That was my thing. And so it wasn't until I got back to college and friends that enjoy the outdoors took me with them, and they knew me well enough. I loved how they knew me well enough that they removed the excuses before they even made the invitation. So when they said like, "Hey, do you want to go? Like, do you want to go on a bike ride with me?" Before I said I don't have, but don't worry, I brought an extra bike. Or hey, do you want to go fly fish? Don't worry, like I've got everything covered. You want to go on a day hike? Hey, I've got this extra pack. Like just, and so now even for us, where we're kind of thinking this next phase is like, oh, cool, like a gear program. Whether it's gear swap, whether it's kind of used gear, we're still kind of working on that. But again, how can we make it more accessible? And again, it's not for people that look like me, but it's still people that don't have the available access to the outdoors. How can we make it so that like the yes is easy when we make the invitation?
Oh, I love that. And I think that's what we're doing at Hiking My Feelings too. Like we have programs, and it's not specifically like I don't take, well, especially now, I used to lead hikes, but that doesn't happen anymore because of COVID. But like we have like a 12-week program, and the people that go through that program, I'm like, so what do you want to do when you get done? Like, and we created the space within our community for people to do that, because the thing that I hear most is like, I want to go start a business, or I have this idea of a space I want to facilitate, but like, how do I find clients? Do I need to build a website? It's like, no, just like start it here. Yeah, and if you end up taking off and like going and building your own big thing, then my job is done. Right, like, I don't need you. Like, I don't need to hold you close and to keep it here. And it's only Hiking My Feelings. Like we call Hiking My Feelings in our community, the Summit Circle, a soft place to land and a firm place to launch from. Like, come here, we got you, love you. And also go soar. Like I'm not in the business of like hugging you to the point where you can't breathe. Like Stacy might argue that that's different because I have a tendency to save. However, when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I love that. And I think from an outdoors experience perspective, I mean, Jahmicah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if any other outdoor store or brand or group is doing it where they're thinking of the activity first and selling gear second. I see a lot of gear stores that are like, oh, we should probably start selling experiences so we can make more money. But they're not thinking, people don't have this equipment. Let's go take them out for the experience, see if they even like it, and then make the recommendations. Like, I feel like, and I've only been in this industry for a handful of years, so I could be talking out my butt right now, but like, I really feel like that is a revolutionary way to approach the industry and community and your business. Like, that is impressive to me.
Well, I'm not really one for, I'm not the money guy. I'm not really business focused, which might be I think about it now, but like, it really is about the people for us, because that's what matters. And even kind of Stacy said earlier, that's something that I realized it kind of through my depression, that like work has to be engaged. So like, if I don't engage work, it'll be there tomorrow. Like it's not gonna like just get itself done overnight and I come through. But like, the people are here now. They're coming through, and they're wanting to connect. So like, yes, we want to sell gear, but also we want to connect and build a relationship that maybe you can start to trust us. So then when we invite you outdoors, you'll be more bought in. So like when you come in, we've got the record player right there, because sometimes that catches people's eye. Like you come in, they're not really there to learn about outdoor stuff. But hey, if we can talk about an Aretha Franklin album and make that connection and then build from there, kind of have that commonality, well then maybe we can get you outdoors. And so with our goal of getting people outdoors, getting people on the water, is because the more people that are outdoors, well, the more that the more chances there are for conservationists to be made, right? To be able to fall in love with that. Like that's my secret mission. It's so subversive too, right? Like, because if you give people the experience where they can heal and connect with nature, then they become very protective of that place where that happened. Yeah,
And so
for
like
sure.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, y'all are just gonna be wanting to save the planet. Like that's my goal ultimately. Like come home to yourself, buy the books, join our programs, come to the campfire, but ultimately like save the land.
When I go fishing, I have a net, and I don't always catch fish. So someone asked me like, "Hey man, why do you carry that? That's just like extra. It's extra weight." I said, "Well, because I'm always going to catch something." He's like, "Yeah, but you told me like sometimes you don't catch any fish." I said, "That's right, but I'm always going to catch something. Like guarantee wherever I go to any kind of public water space, there's going to be trash. So I'm going to scoop it up in my net and take it out with me because I want to come back to this spot for first and selfishly again for me because it's helping me with my depression and anxiety. But secondly, when I invite people to it, I want them to have a good experience too and enjoy it. And so like those sort of things of like, again, this kind of communal mindset, if we can create that in the shop and community in the shop, well, then when you go outdoors, you're not going to change your mindset. You're going to have that community mindset outdoors as well. And you're going to want to experience it with other people, which is going to hopefully then cause you to invite people into your space.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. And I'm so excited. So we're doing, so the third part of our tour. So we have a 30-day program for people to like learn how to live life with diabetes in healthy, happy ways. We have the Million Mile Challenge where we're trying to get folks activated online, signed up, tracking their miles towards our goal of hiking 1,000,000 miles for diabetes awareness. And then the last one is our tour where we're hiking around these different areas to bring awareness to the fact that you don't have to go up a mountain to have a hike. Like a walk around town, a walk around this green space, those are hikes too. And so for me, and I think that's a real big barrier to entry too, is like, I'm a word nerd about language we use. And I think it's really like, even just to call something a hike, like, that's why I'm like, it's hiking my feelings and it's take a hike diabetes, but that's also running, walking, rolling. If you're in a wheelchair, like I want this to be as accessible as possible to people. Like you don't have to walk up a mountain and call that a hike. And the definition that I arrived at for what is a hike is people are like, well, what's a hike, Sydney? Do I have to be outside? Am I on concrete? Am I on a path? And it's like, if you're walking for the intention of enjoyment and exploration, that's a hike to me. And that could be around your neighborhood. That could be up a mountain. That could be summiting Kilimanjaro, like whatever it is. If you're doing it with the intent of like enjoying it, and you're not necessarily just going from one destination to another, though I would argue like you can hike around town. That's what we're doing in Chicago and DC and everywhere else. But I think like the language that we use has to be inclusive so we don't scare people away from having these experiences.
Yeah.
So can I come hang out with you in Texas when we're on our way around the country?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. You can do one of your podcasts from in the shop.
Okay, done. I love it. Fantastic.
We'll close the shop for a day. It's only money, right? So if my wife, well, no, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll
awesome.
We will figure it. And so this is really cool. I got to say, Sydney, I didn't know about this, and so again, and we're transparent to a fault. I think we've already said that. If you see the film, like we don't mind just kind of airing it out. But my dad went to the ER last night. He has type 2 diabetes and foot ulcers, and so. When I was right when you were talking with Becky, and we sell Salomons as well, which I've put him in intentionally in the past, and that was just to like, they're such a good shoe. He was working at Home Depot, and again, I'm a sneakerhead, so I'm a nerd about these things, and so I was like, okay, he's on hardwood floor, or sorry, he's on cement floor. I want to give him a good shoe with some good traction, but stability and cushion as well. And we put him in actually the older version of, we put him in well, it wasn't the mid X, it was the X Ultra low top. But hearing about this, just when you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, like, so I quickly text my siblings on WhatsApp, and it's like, hey, yeah, I'm going to be on this podcast, like whatever that, but like, hey, listen, like come back and look at the first section. Don't worry about me. Like, this is something we can do for Pops. And so my sister already, but she's the dietitian and nutritionist of the group. She's like on it, which she's usually that type. But like, so that's so cool, because you're totally right. There's this crossover of the people that don't really feel like they have the representation, or that they are included or considered, and then the people that that suffer from some of these issues, there's so much overlap that, again, I think I'm fairly new to the outdoor industry as well. It's kind of like, hey, like the amount, I don't say they're going to be there, but like let's how can we, again, whether business owners or not, but how can we meet the people where they're at so that they can be healthy and live long enough to maybe experience those mountains, or at least that they are confident enough to kind of take that ownership of the outdoors back.
Yeah. And I mean, and ultimately, like the question that I'm asking on tour, the question that I'm asking, and maybe this is a great kind of way to round it out. The question that I'm asking in my connecting the dots column on diabetes is, what is the relationship between trauma and diabetes? And if we address the trauma, can we more effectively treat diabetes? Because it's no question that food deserts, food swamps, racism, oppression, inequity, pay inequity, like all of the things, colonization, like from the top down, like it is, I don't know why, if this is being, I'm also full transparency, I'm new at diabetes and I'm new to the outdoor industry. So this might be already being done somewhere somehow, but I would have found it if it was, because I'm looking for it. So why are we not, and like from a brand perspective, and shout out to Salomon for getting on it and like understanding the impact that is possible here. From a pure dollars and cents perspective, 122 million Americans live with diabetes. It makes good sense to put some effort into this community and make things available to them just from dollars and cents. Never mind that it's the right thing to do, but also it's so intertwined with all of these issues that everybody claims to care about, that if they get into it, then it's like you're by focusing specifically on diabetes in the outdoors, you're talking about representation, you're talking about inclusion, you're talking about equity, you're talking about access.
Right. Yeah.
It seems like a no-brainer to me, but I'm like, I'm beating my head up until Salomon. I'm like, I'm beating my head trying to get people to see this. So thank you. First of all, I hope your father's okay. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Hey, Pop,
so like,
love you.
Yeah. So what in your mind, like, what's the relationship then, just in your own experience in your community? Like, what is the relationship between trauma and diabetes?
Well, I think, and you were talking about so many of these issues of like the food deserts and like I think the relationship between trauma and diabetes is just a lack of access. I mean, and it is a lack of access, and it will take something big enough, I think, like the outdoor industry, maybe partnering with with a health system to help give these access to these places, doing it mobile, and I think, I really do. It is a lack of access, because you're totally right. Like, if it's a lack of access to healthcare, they're also like they're not just lacking access to healthcare, they're lacking access to other things as well. And so when you talk about access, and like you said, if you hit that point, you're covering just such a multitude of issues right there, from merely a dollars and cents points. I think at the same time, though, I think when we're talking about dollars and cents, when you hear that term, people think like, oh, we're talking about maybe making dollars and cents, right? We're talking about some gross revenue. And some of it is we're talking about giving that away
and redistributing the dollars and cents. Yes.
not even necessarily in again, monetary means, but like this shoe program, this maybe, a pack program, with, if one of the pack programs was to do something with hydration packs and just kind of give those things, like, like just these things of like, oh man, well, I'm amazed that I think once you have not all the gear, not everything, a few good pieces, I think opens up not just like your options, I think in the outdoors, as we're talking about, maybe like out in the woods, but I think in the outdoors, again, just stepping outside your house of like, you know what, I think I'd like to walk to work today, or I think I'd like to get there maybe a little bit extra and just kind of walk around the block or something. And like, because you have, it didn't have to be the the most high tech. It doesn't even have to be new. I think that's one of the cool things is with outdoor gear, most of it is so well made that it has the secondary, third, fourth lives for it to be reused, right? So even if we're talking about that, redistributing, so that people can, yeah, I sorry, I think I'm rambling, but I really do.
You're onto it. I like it.
It's access. It's really access. And when you say like, well, access to what? It's like, well, I think to try to specify it, I think narrows it. And I think we start doing it again of like, no, we're just going to solve this one problem. Like, no. But like, there's a multitude of problems within that problem or right around that problem. So like if we just say access, it covers so many things of, again, whether you're talking about food deserts, whether you're talking about green spaces and parks. Again, we're not even talking about like public spaces in the way of like state parks and stuff. Like, just give them like public space.
A block. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Something pretty green to look at, to step on, to lie down, and just, I don't know, go out and like soak up the sun or sit under a tree. Again, for us in our area, that's what it is. We just want to get you outside. And a lot of it for us is also, so I'll say access, but like it is about giving that stuff away. It's about us partnering with brands and them giving the resources that we can that we can then offer these things for free.
Yes.
So that people can have some buy-in. And when we're talking about buying, it'll be of their time. And with the brands, we're talking about buying, it'll be monetary means through product or something like that. But it's still buy-in. And that the hope is then you turn, I think then you start to kind of turn people into loyal customers.
100%.
So.
Ooh, I love it. We're solving problems, or starting to at least articulate what the problems are so they can be solved. So our next and our final segment. So everybody that's on Zoom, go ahead and pop on your cameras. We like to close all of our events at Hiking My Feelings with a group gratitude circle. And what this means is I'll call on people who have their cameras on Zoom. But life is heavy and man, shit gets hard, like sometimes we talk about hard stuff and Hiking My Feelings. Sometimes we talk about light and fluffy stuff, but at the end of the day, having a gratitude practice and finding something to be grateful for is a really nice way. That's how I pull myself out of my dark and twisty downward spirals that I have as well. I live with mental illness and different ailments of all kinds of sorts. But gratitude is a really nice way to bring it back and get back in our bodies and end everything on a high note. So I'll kick us off. I am grateful for the opportunity to chat with my friend Stacy, who I haven't seen in forever, for Salomon for supporting us here at Hiking My Feelings. This is our first big sponsor, our first outdoor industry sponsor, and I hope not the last. And I'm grateful that I was able to connect with you too, Jahmicah. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and following the story of how the community is really showing up for Slim Pickins. So, and of course, none of this would be possible without this community. So for everybody that's here, everybody that's listening later, thank you so much for being here. Jahmicah, what are you thankful for?
Yeah, I'm thankful for transparency. What you just said, it gets hard sometimes, and there's power just in transparency and admitting that you need help. We would not be here right now. I would not be having this conversation if we weren't able to be transparent enough to just say we need help. So
yeah. Miss Stacy, how about you? What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for you, of course, but I think I'm really thankful for community, and I love the way, and I'm thankful for flexibility, because it's hard right now, and we're still finding new ways to gather and connect, and that's so important. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yes. All right. Oh, I just lost my other screen. Maureen, how about you?
Okay. So I am definitely grateful for Stacy and Jahmicah. You guys have said the most I don't know, Sydney, I think you know, but like, I felt like you were speaking to me tonight, you guys, in some ways. But I'm incredibly grateful for this conversation tonight. Jahmicah, some of the stuff that you said was very inspiring. You know, it was very much in tune with what I want to do, with what I'm trying to do right now and what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I am super inspired by you, and I can't wait to find out more about Slim Pickins and everything. I'm very excited about what you're doing. Very
Yeah,
much.
Maureen and Jahmicah need to meet up. This is you guys are kindred spirits in the work that you're doing and stuff like that. Thank you, Maureen, for being here. Ashley, what are you thankful for?
I am definitely thankful for everyone who was speaking tonight. I think that Stacy should join our Summit Circle. Just going to throw that out there.
I agree.
I am super, super impressed with everything that everyone had to say. And one thing that really stuck out to me is something that Jahmicah said, the helping in the ways that they need to be helped. And you know, I think that applies, like, even when I think about that with myself, it's hard for me to understand sometimes the help that I need. So how could I, you know, assume that I know exactly how anyone else needs to be helped? I think it helps us take a step back and really learn to listen. And so I'm just really, really grateful for you guys, and I am grateful for the community as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, my screen's all janky. Michelle, what are you thankful for? So nice to see you. We're going to hug soon. Oh! You're muted, sweetie.
Oops, sorry. We're going to do some cartwheels soon. Looking
Yes,
forward
we
to
are.
that. I'm grateful for having electricity, water, and food. I live in Texas. I live in Laredo, Texas. And right now, we were not expecting this winter storm. We're blessed that throughout the whole thing, we had electricity, water. We did not have food. I went to the grocery store yesterday. Shelves are completely empty. And due to the weather, trailers haven't made it down to South Texas yet with food. So we were able to find some, but it's just, it made me realize that some things that we take, we don't appreciate, like light, water, it could just be gone in a second. And a lot of people were left without water. Pipes were bursting. They were left without heat. I'm just grateful that we're making it through, and I'm keeping everybody in Texas in our prayers, sending good vibes, and that's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that for you too. I have been thinking about you and Sarah, and we got a strong contingent of folks in this community in Texas, and I've been thinking about you guys, and I need to do a better job of checking in, but I'm glad you were here and able to join us.
Thank you. I checked in with Amanda and I checked in with Sarah. They're both doing well. They were able to get situated and all that stuff. From what I know of the people that are in a group that live in Texas, but it's a tough one, but we're Texas strong. We'll get through it.
Absolutely. Carrie, what are you thankful for? I can't hear you, Carrie. Boop, boop, boop. She's doing it. She's doing it. All right. Well, you work on that. Yeah, there she is.
Sorry, my headphones died. Because I've been on meetings since 8 o'clock this morning. I'll try to talk loud so you can hear me because my laptop's way over there. I am thankful for this community because it always seems to deliver messages that I need to hear at the time I need to hear them for some reason. So Stacy, thank you for that. I had a very craptastic day today, and your inspiration made it so much better. And I wanted to say that I'm very thankful. I went on your website and I saw something that was written there that I really needed to hear today, which is it's not just about getting things done. It's about having enough of you left when all is said and done. And I really needed to hear that today. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sweets, what are you thankful for?
Hi. I am really thankful for the thread. All three speakers, all three people that joined us tonight sent this message, this strong message to meet people where they are. And whether it's with the shoes and the accessibility and creating more accessible to different, different populations. And then Stacy, you're really poignant about not what we think is going to help, but what's actually going to help. And Jahmicah, just so much appreciation for just really the dedication to the idea of giving equipment a second life so that somebody can have an experience that's going to change their life. It's just brilliant. And like Carrie said, we come to these places in this community and it's always the right message. It's always the perfect message for the moment and it happens over and over to all of us. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm just really happy I was able to join.
Me too. Ooh, love you, Sweets.
Love
Alicia,
you.
Alicia, how about you? What are you thankful for?
Hi, I am grateful for community. I am grateful for this space. Miss Stacy, I'm grateful for you and all the aha moments I had tonight, and you really validating some stuff that I think about often, and thank you very much. Grateful for Jahmicah and his story, and definitely grateful for Salomon Shoes and contributing to the Take a Hike Diabetes, and yeah, just grateful for all these beautiful faces.
And we'll see your beautiful face on Catalina too. Hey, I'm so excited. All right, Miss Mary, round it out. You lucky shoe winner, you. That was not rigged, just in case anybody was wondering. Barry did it. I didn't do it. Mary's like, what? Why?
Well, I'm obviously very grateful to have won a pair of Salomon shoes. I can't wait. They will be put to good use as soon as possible. Starting to rack up some miles, and I need some new shoes for that. So, and just for the support that Salomon's giving the campaign and Take a Hike Diabetes, that's just fantastic. So, and I'm just grateful for the learnings that were shared tonight from your different guests. Jahmicah, I love when you said that you're not a great businessman. You're actually my favorite kind of business person. I love finding and supporting and connecting with businesses like yours that are really in it for the people and the experiences, and not just the dollars or, the business side of it. So I someday hope to start my own business. I still have yet to figure out what it is, but your story is really inspiring. And like I said, you're my favorite kind of business person. So, and just Stacy, I mean, so many nuggets there. I'm probably gonna go back and watch her section a few times, but getting free is a process and staying free is a practice. That is something that I'm going to keep reminding myself of every day. So thank you for that.
Oh man, I love this. I love when we all get to come together. Thursday is my favorite day of the week. So thank you guys for joining us. If you are on YouTube, let's all wave bye to the YouTube people, and then we'll say goodnight on Zoom. So bye YouTube. See you later. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to turn it off. Don't say anything you don't want to hear on the internet. Hang on. Things got wild. And oh my God. Oh, it's over. It's all over, guys. We're never going to get off YouTube. All right, here we go. End stream. No, we're just going to keep going. Okay. Oh, Lord. Let's all do a dance. We can say